Hello guys, and welcome to a new Broken Arrow video today by me, Vulcan. In this one, I'm really excited to be able to share with you the details of the 1.1.1 patch for Broken Arrow. People will be calling this Broken Arrow 2.0. It is a huge patch. We've got many pages to go through. I will probably sum up some of the areas of the patch notes, but of course they will be on screen, so if you want to pause and get more details exactly, then feel free to do so. But I'm going to be here for hours if I basically stop and read out every single one. But we'll start with the foreword. A new update for the main version of the game has arrived. Observer mode, updated maps, improved performance and connection stability, a wide range of changes from the PTE branch, and of course, many more quality of life features and bug fixes. Please note that July 30th, starting 4 PM Moscow time, the servers will be temporarily unavailable during the build deployment. Based on our current estimates, the maintenance should take around 3 hours. 4 PM Moscow time is about 1 PM GMT, so hopefully that gives you sort of rough idea when that's going to be, and just be prepared for the servers being down. Okay, let's get into the changes. So they've added a new objective zone and spawn layout for Chernikovs, Jelgava, Bay of Winds and Kaliningrad. I think Kaliningrad's roughly the same. They've just added some spawn zones so that you can access the other side of the map sooner. Added a new, significantly more advanced LOS tool, so you can now see more detail on the line of sight tool, and you also have the ability to show stealth values, so you can see like roughly how close to something you need to be in order to spot it if it has a certain stealth value, and you can use a slider in game to change that. They've added the first iteration of Observer mode. This is the spectate mode that's only available in custom battles. It will not be available in like quick battle or like ranked battles in general. They've added the hotkeys to enable or disable weapons. So at the bottom, you can now do that with hotkeys and real vision. I'm not sure what real vision means in this, but it's there. Added the ability to save and share color presets for unit labels. This is going to be fantastic for teams in competitive play because everybody can have the same color set, and then you can obviously point out who you're talking about by color, which will be handy. This would also be good for spectators. Means that both spectators have the same colors for every person, so they can again kind of refer to different people and know where we're looking on the map. Improve the visualization of unit paths and action cues. So now instead of like the tiny small line, there is like an arrow that shows roughly where things go. I think they're a little bit big at the moment, but hopefully they'll adjust that moving forwards. Added an in-game chat during the map and deck selection phase, as well as on the post-match results screen. So you now talk to people before, during, and after the game. Added the ability to mute players through in-game chat, which also hides their markers. Improved various UI elements and unit voice lines. Max camera height increased by 100 meters, so you can zoom out a little bit more. Multiple performance improvements across the board. Improved server-side processing of damage over time effects. Improved the logic used to prior check server availability for the entire lobby. So this will give like generally lower ping to people overall, and this will be useful for less desync. Various improvements to interaction with ghost units, so hopefully we'll get less of that. So ghost units can now be dragged and dropped by the labels and no longer appear near the cursor when purchasing units. Oh, okay, so that's to do with, not with invisible units, that's to do with when you're placing a unit on the map and it has a little ghost marker to begin with. So added a new replace option for the selected unit in the editor. Added altitude change and force fire nodes. So this is editor stuff in general. If you're interested in that, then those changes are there. So reverted changes. Remove deployment delay when dismounting infantry from ground transport. So in the last patch, they made it so that when you click unload, there's like a little timer and then they drop out. They've removed that entirely. That was really bad. Really badly affecting helicopters. I didn't mind it on ground transport so much, but yeah. Replaced infinite supply ability with new limited munition ability. So no more infinite supply on transports. Each transport vehicle has their own amount of supplies assigned to them, which can be refilled on friendly supplies. And they've also made it so that infantry healing is now the same as it was before. So I think in the current version, it's like 0.25 times healing on transports and then normal on supply, but they've just reverted that. So sneak ability removed from all vehicles is a big one. So no more sneak on the 2400 optics vehicles, which was a little obnoxious because you were able to spot a sniper with 2400 optics before it could spot your sneak vehicle, which is a kind of a poor interaction in the game, in my opinion. Aim time for all aircraft air-to-air missiles has been reverted from 0 to 1 second. So, ASF is going to be not as useful as it was before, unfortunately. I kind of liked the aim time decrease. Smoke screen duration from artillery standardized to 60 seconds. So they had howitzers, I think, were at 90 seconds. Now everything's 60. T-72B availability reverted from 9 to 6, and T-72B3 availability limit reduced from 6 to 4. This was a little oppressive, this one, the T-72B3 version, at least. This one wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, especially since T-72Bs get kicked around by Abrams and Leopards pretty easily. Seed and cruise missiles removed from the target list for following weapons. So Igla S and the Stinger. So this is radar-equipped SHORADs can no longer target seed and cruise missiles. Same with the OSA, AKM, and the Tunguska. And then the land-based Fletcher and Striker SHORAD can no longer target seed and cruise missiles. Right, game core. This is a kind of a good change because things like the Striker SHORAD in particular were overperforming in this role. So yeah, it's a nice change. Added a new dynamic income system. Not a huge fan of it, but we'll see how it goes. Added a maximum reserve call-in limit of 1,500 points. Not a fan of this generally, but it's fine. Added a new conquest game mode. So captured objective zones now generate conquest points over time. War goal limit scales with the difference in controlled objective zones between both teams. Destruction points rules remain unchanged, and compensation between phases has been removed. So what used to happen is if you were behind at the end of a phase, say you were like 1 point behind, one war goal behind, you get like an extra 100 points at the end of the phase if you were the one behind. The way that the conquest mode works is like if you have one more cap than your opponent, you can cap up to +1 war goal. So it's a nice new game mode. I actually like it now that they've made the adjustments to it. Increased resurrection timers after death for all units. This has generally made infantry like more scarce, particularly special forces units. They are more like 11, or I think it was like 9.5 minute respawn timer if they die, which is quite a long time for something like Marine Raider, CQC, Delta Force, SSO, for example. Whereas like your standard line infantry, it's going to be like 7 minutes, and then I think sort of reserve style infantry are going to be like 5 minutes or so. Spawn sides for both teams are now assigned randomly in standard matches. Delay between bursts of automatic weapons for vehicles is no longer affected by stress. So that's kind of nice. That's going to make IFVs a little bit more usable in situations where they do get stressed quickly. Resupply radius from supply dumps has been increased from 50 to 75 meters. I like that a lot. It's just a bit more handy. You can use supply behind buildings a bit more effectively. Infantry squads. So LAT's base stress value multiplier has been increased. The same with the UBGLs. Been increased from, or reduced, sorry, from 1 to 0.5. So that's going to be like grenade launchers are going to be less effective at stressing enemy units, which is actually probably a good change. Infantry resist system inverted. So the full percent available to the squad in a calm state and moderate shock and minimal in panic. So the resist system was basically the more you got stressed, the more damage resistance you had. Now it's the opposite. So you have your maximum damage resistance when you're a full squad, and then you get less damage resistance the more you take damage. So do bear that in mind. It is going to cause your squads to die quicker the more they get panicked, which is, I think, a kind of a nice change, to be honest. It makes more sense. Squad loss prioritization system. So the order in which they die to take enough damage has been adjusted. Shock and panic states for infantry are a bit more spaced out, so it doesn't just go from shock to panic immediately. Suppression penalty to the aim time increased from ×1 to ×2 shock and ×2 to ×3 panic. So basically you're doubling the aim time if you're shocked and tripling it if you're panicked now. Added an over damage system with the threshold of 38 damage or higher, which allows weapons to ignore infantry resistance in an open field. Okay. Base tier optics for infantry has been increased from 1200 to 1400 meters. This is a nice change. Just allows you to kind of spot things in the open a bit easier with infantry. All infantry HGMs aim time standardized to 1 to 2 seconds, except terminal guided missiles. Infantry firing positions inside buildings have been adjusted to more easily hit tank roof armor. So if you're 100 meters from a 5-story building, you can still hit tanks in top armor. It's 200 meters from a 9-story building and 400 meters from a high-rise building, which is actually pretty massive. So be careful with your tanks and armored vehicles near high rises in particular, because they can be top attacked from 400 meters away by, like a Ranger's Maw or something like that. So definitely a change to be noting. Don't just like charge your tank straight into those. VDV Sturm loadout has been replaced, and the RPK has been changed for another AK-74 RMO. So you now get 3 AT and 3 thermobaric rather than 6 thermobaric. And they've added the VDV PKP, which basically get 2 PKPMs, 3 AKs with a grenade launcher, and the RPG-7V, which is a 500mm pen heat RPG. And so that's basically a new unit which has been added for free, which is cool. Guardsman Strelky, additional RPG-28 added, so they get 5 shots now instead of 4. Then we get the grenade launcher has been removed from the motorized brigade. Added a new custom loadout for the PTO Metis instead, which is the Motopokota AGS. So they get an AGS-17 in the squad, which is cool. PDSS optics reduced from 2,000 to 1,750. I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of this, but it is what it is. Chernier Beretti availability reduced from 3 to 2, but reworked into a 12-man squad, and you now have 2 loadouts for those. If you want to check them out, they're there. But basically, the standoff version has an RPG-29 and an SVD, so it does manage to pin things quite well at distance. And then the close quarters still has those launches, and it's a nice thick squad, kind of like the Rangers, the Marine Raiders CQC. Rozvedka. Additional RPG-26 added, PKM swapped to AKM. Marine Raiders, they have M1014, I think that's just shotguns set as secondary weapons. Additional Mark 18 CQBR on the main slot added for Marine Raiders. That's the close quarters version. Then we have squad size increase for mech rifle MMG, mech rifle AA, and mech engineers. This is a really nice change, and you'll see why later on, because they've also increased the amount of men you can have in the transports that they're available for. And they've got an additional M249 on the mech rifleman. Mech rifleman AA get an additional couple stingers. Mech rifleman MMG get an additional M240, and a new custom loadout for the mech rifleman MG, which gives them a dragon, which is cool. Airborne Recce, they have been reworked to have different loadouts. So you've got a standard loadout, which is only 55 points. They get shorter range weapons, so it's only like 400 meter range weapons across the board, I think. And then they got the next generations, which goes up to that 600 meter range. Then I think this one doesn't have a launcher, actually. Yeah, it doesn't look like it. So for 65 points, you don't have a launcher. It's more like a double sniper squad, I think it is, or like a marksman rifle and then a sniper. So Scouts, additional 84 added, which is nice. Rangers have had their M249s replaced with KAK-AMG, which is the longer range machine gun, I think. Then we've got Ranger CQC, where their HE Law has been replaced with a Moors. I think it's a HE Moors, yeah. Then we've got Greenberry. Their shotguns are secondaries, and their main slot has been added. Another HK416, by the looks of it. Selyukai have had another one of their HE laws added. Base damage is increased for the AK545 and the A762. I'm not entirely sure what these are. If that's actually AK, I don't think it's supposed to be AK. Maybe it is. Some stuff I'm not going to be completely familiar with in terms of the names of individual weapons. But the Mark 48 and KAK-AMG have a minimum distance removed, which is great because they can be used for CQC now, which means that like rangers, like long range rangers, will still be pretty good at close range, just like kind of airborne with new generation weapons are. PKP bulk up, Mark 48, KAK-AMG, and Mini-Me have had their aim time standardized to 2 to 3 seconds. So they're going to take a little bit longer to aim though. And range has been standardized for UBGLs. Range standardized for snipers to 1,000 meters, and the T5000 and Mark 22 have now got 1,100 meter range. Firing patterns for all tier DMRs has been slightly reworked, and cover ignore value reduced from 50 to 25. So I think they fire a bit faster, but they have less cover ignore, which is a bit of a shame. I liked the fact that they had the cover ignore. It made them very useful for like sniping stuff out of buildings at range, or just doing a little bit extra damage in those situations. Metis, range acceleration increased. So they fire further, and the missile flies a little faster, which is nice. Nice change for the Metis. Same with the Dragon and Metis M. They go from 1,000 to 1,100, and they now move at 36 meters per second, which is a significant increase. Aim time has been reduced on the Sapwog, which is great. And the Vampire has had its reload time reduced, same with the Straw. Some of these changes might already be alive, I'm just thinking, but it's worth noting anyway. Javelin and Spike aim time reduced, so those are going to be a bit more oppressive, I would say, but at least they're not infinite supplied anymore like they were before. Pioron base damage reduced from 8 to 7, which is a shame because it was really nice to have that 8 damage on the Pioron. It was probably the only reason you took it. Penetration values reduced for the following ammo. So basically across the board, HE rounds have had their penetration reduced, which will make them less effective against light armor. Yeah, you're still going to be able to do decent damage to those units in the top armor and the side armor and the rear armor. But now if you're shooting like a striker in the front with a thermobaric round, or like a Sturmoviki, right, with a HE RPG, it's not going to do that much damage. So that is all stuff to definitely pay attention to. And it's the same for the HE HGMs as well, as you see, like the HE Conkers and so on. So there you go. Weapon resupply costs have been adjusted for UBGLs, LATs, that's light AT, light tier HGMs, and heavy tier HGMs. And you can see the values here. So 100 kilogram per light HGM and 150 per heavy HGM. Transport vehicles. So this is what I was talking about earlier with the mech rifle changes. It's very, very cool. It means that like obviously mech rifles still fit in Bradley's because I made it 67, but M13s are now carrying 2 mech rifle squads, and also Amtracs can now carry like an extra guy as well, which it makes a big difference because it kind of allows you to have a mishmash of different squads in an Amtrac and push it forwards, which is great. And the MTLB VM as well just makes that a bit more useful. Added a new resupply ability for infantry-bound transports with the following pattern. So 250 kilograms in IFVs, APCs, and other infantry transport with high seat capacity or autocannon/HGMs. 400 kilograms for APC and other infantry transport with basic capabilities. And 800 kilogram for specialized transports like the BMO, BTO, and Warpig. The Warpig in particular, a really nice amount of supply for those. Stealth value increased for the following units because basically these are all the ones that had their stealth removed. So they've just buffed their stealth to 1.5 again, so that when they're in the tree line, they have 3 stealth. Stealth value is reduced for all of these, which are sort of the fighting versions of recon vehicles. So because they have a gun, basically they are less stealthy now, but they still have 2 stealth in cover, right? Just like most other things at 1. Yeah, because basically the way that Woods cover works is 2x, whatever your stealth value is. Okay, battle vehicles. All vehicles, 80 gems, except terminal guided missiles, aim time standardized. Vehicle-based MMGs, HMGs, and miniguns, aim time reduced. So yeah, that's kind of nice, particularly the minigun, which is terrible. Autocannons and vehicle-based AGL time reduced. You'll just see like in general across the board, like aim times have been reduced. Tank gun aim time reduced from 3 to 4 to 1.5 to 2.5. This is a massive change that I think a lot of people liked in the PTE, myself included. I just felt like it made IFVs harder to use, and therefore I was okay with it not coming to live. But they've gone ahead with it now, and it will be joining us in this patch. Gun launch 80 gem aim time has been reduced. We've got damage increase for 100 to 125 APFDS rounds from 8 to 10. So this is like Striker MGS. They've also done the heat rounds from 10 to 11. 80 gem base missile damage has been increased. Also, actually, I think it's 105s on MGS, but anyway, damage increase for those as well. They're going to be a lot scarier for like side shots and such, but in the front armor, the tanks are still going to shrug it off a lot because of the lack of penetration. So damage is higher when you get the flanking ability or get the flanking going, but otherwise you're not going to notice it too much, except for maybe the HE stuff. So heat round, extra 0.5 damage. Sokol V 80 gem goes for an extra 5.5, and the 3BK16 heat has been increased a little bit. Cover ignore values for the following tank shells have been added. So now 100 mil HE and 105 mil HESH has 10%, 120 mil gets 20%, 125 gets 30%, and 152 gets the 40%. So Sheridans are going to be much more impactful, and like the M60, right, against infantry and cover. And tanks in general will be able to do more damage with their main gun to infantry in combat in cover, which is okay-ish. I'm not sure if I'm 100% happy with it, but it's fine. It just means that you're going to be doing like maybe an extra little bit of damage. You'll kill like one dude plus a little bit more generally, unless it's the Sheridan, in which case you do an absolute load of damage, which is kind of nice because I feel like the specialized units aren't used enough. But the Cosmic SPG9 has been reduced aim time. BTO has been reduced in aim time. That's the one that fires the thermobaric rounds. Warpig Fletcher time reduced. This is a nice one. Warpig with Fletcher right now is very good value, so give it a go. And the TGB is the Baltic Jeep, which has also had its aim time reduced. All right, moving on. We have fire support. So the max dispersion for MLRS has been increased at 0 meters. Accuracy is now half of the max at full distance. So howitzers and MLRS range has been increased by an additional 500 meters. I wasn't a fan of this, but here it comes, I guess. Availability limits for all mortar systems have been reduced to 3 cards. Fixed artillery Q fire orders reverting to the default shell after the first order. So just some quality of life there. All right, Grad. Cluster munition base damage and delay between launches has been reduced. So cluster grad goes from 3 to 1.5 and 0.6 to 0.3 respectively. Then we've got max dispersion increase as well on the grad there. So the grad cluster is going to be a lot more like just spread out, and you're going to be using it to like kill enemy supply, do a bit of chipping damage here and there to vehicles. It's going to be more annoying than anything. The range on the Tochka has been increased to 8 kilometers, and the Iskander's up from 8 to 10. Attackums has been increased from 7 to 9, and prisms have been gone from 8 to 10. I think this might be similar to live anyway. Meteorite base damage reduced from 38 to 35. We got the Miklik and Assault Breacher also getting the same punishment, which is kind of sad. Like the Miklik and the Meteorite, really cool units to use. I think they're still going to be very effective. They're just not going to have as much like blast, like radius, I guess. I added a new internal subclassification for all tube artillery systems. So long range fire mission length goes 1, 2, or 3. Multi-purpose is 3, 6, 9, and conventional is quarter, half, and full ammo. I'm not a huge fan of these. I would much rather, like in some cases, particularly like the Panzerhaubitze, it fires really fast. So sometimes you want to fire more than 3 rounds in one salvo. But alas, that's how it is now. Reworked Tier 1 artillery. So that's Koletaya. Cluster munitions have been removed. Smoke shells removed from both loadouts. So the Koletaya is just kind of a specialized long-range HE unit now, rather than the cluster, which is a shame because they just buffed the cluster in the last patch to make it have a bigger spread, but that might have been reverted. M109 A7 Paladin HE RAP shells have been removed. I think that's the... Is that the laser shells, maybe? Brutus default HE, smoke and cluster munitions have been removed. Added extended range loadout as default, which gets the laser guided rounds. And then the Panzerhaubitze smoke shell removed from default loadout. Cluster munitions loadout replaced with a new extended range loadout, which gets laser guided rounds. The Panzerhaubitze is actually going to be kind of scary. Reworked Tier 2 artillery, so Muster now has HE variant removed and gets cluster instead, and smoke. So the Muster is going to be a cluster variant. Gaiatzen has had its loadout changed. M109 Copperhead removed from cluster and added to default high explosive munitions loadout instead of Excalibur. So no more free. Actually, no, that's got precision guided still. Okay, that's fine. K9 ammo adjusted slightly. So the upgraded version still gets the precision guided munition, I assume that stands for. And then Tier 3 RT, Gvozdyka aim time reduced and smoke shell removed from default variant. Oster weapon system redesigned for mortar type and rules. Guided shell removed. Okay. Bereg interaction between artillery and anti-air munition has been improved. Secondary weapon removed. So Spag mode has aim time reduced, maximum dispersion reduced. So the Bereg's like way better than it was before against air targets. Particularly helicopters doesn't do well at all against aircraft, obviously. Akatia M1 and M2 mixing shells of different type removed from both variants. So you now get smoke and heat or HE and heat. We got the Striker SBH. So either full high explosive and smoke munitions, and same with the Paladin, you can have full HE and full smoke. I'm not sure if I'm a big fan of like the way they've changed these. I guess it's forcing you to have more than one artillery piece. So you have like one for HE, one for smoke kind of thing. But I liked that they would have like different munitions. All right, reworked high caliber mortars. So changes to the Nonners, the Wiener, the Magnolia, Dilemma, Tulpan. The Tulpan has at the same time increased. This is actually a nice one because it was super, super oppressive. But otherwise, it's just more changes to the loadouts. This is one where you can pause if you want to have a detailed look. Reworked small caliber mortars. So the Drock has mostly high explosive replaced with a new full high explosive loadout. Again, a bit of a shame that they're removing the little bit of smoke that they had. Vasiluk, heat shells added to the loadout instead of smoke. Again, a bit of a shame. You can still get the smoke version, right? But it's just like the HE variant doesn't have smoke as well now, which is, yeah, going to make it less useful. Max dispersion has been standardized for guided shells. So there you go. 260 by 120 meters, top tier HE and HE guided. and then 152 to 155s. I'm not sure if this is like better or worse, but it's obviously just been standardized across the board. So there's that. Weapon resupply time has been standardized for the different shells. You can see all of the seconds there, 3 to 4 seconds, 6 seconds, 4 to 8 seconds, 8 to 10 seconds, 5 to 12 seconds, 10 to 14 seconds for the 240 millimeter guided shells. So it's gonna, like, this is like, I think 203 is Malka's. I don't remember what 240 mil guided shells would be Tulpan. So it's just in general, it's like weapon resupply is going to take longer across the board. Same for all of these units. So the Smirch Tornado has gone up to 40 seconds per unit. So it's 8 minutes it takes now to resupply a Tornado or Smirch. The Toss now takes 20 seconds. Buratino's actually been reduced from 14 to 12 seconds. So it's 8 minutes for the Toss long range and the 6 minutes for the Toss shorter range. Grad is now 6 minutes for 40 rounds. Tochka is now 2 minutes per missile. Same with the Iskander, and the Iskander K is slightly faster because you can have more. So it's like 6 minutes, 40 seconds for 4 missiles instead of what would have been 8 minutes. So because you're paying more for the Iskander K, you get a bit of a quicker reload time, or resupply time, I should say. Same with the M270s, also got the nerf. HIMARS have gone from 30 to 40 seconds, which is good because they were aiming or resupplying pretty fast. CapV has gone from 12 to 17 seconds, so now it's 6 minutes, which is the same as the Buratino. Vacuum's Prisms up to 120 seconds, which is quite a lot. It's a shame that it's what times 4 is 8 minutes. It seems a bit unfair that the Iskander gets 6 minute 40 and this doesn't, but alas. Moving on, AA systems. High altitude firing range has been reduced for most short range SAM missiles. This is to allow ASF to play around a little bit better. AA guns, high altitude firing range reduced and capped at 1 kilometer. AA guns aim time reduced to allow them to kind of get on target quicker. Short range SAMs and SPAG's high altitude radar multiplier has been reduced from ×2 to ×1, and short range SAM and SPAG turret rotation speed has been significantly increased. So they're going to be shorter range, but they aim a lot quicker. So you're basically just not using short range, like SHORAD stuff, to engage aircraft anymore, unless they come right over the top of you. SAM's vertical launch animation speed has been increased, so that's TORs mainly that are affected by that. Fixed AA systems ignoring self-defense priority against seed missiles, which is nice, because it was causing a lot of AA units to just not defend themselves. They would fire at the aircraft first before firing at the seed that was coming towards them, which was actually indirectly making them feel better, particularly the longer range ones like PAC-2s against seed missiles that were high altitude, or seed aircraft that were high altitude. They'd just one-bang them out of the sky, and then the semi-active seed would just lose track. Anyway, burst interval between launches for all medium and long-range SAM increased. Firing range and radar multiplier values have been adjusted for the following SAMs. So medium range ×2 against low altitude and ×3 against high altitude. So now the Iris, basically massive increase in range against high altitude targets. Same with the Book M2 and the NASAMs. I mean, it's still 5.4 and 5.5, which isn't as long as the longest range stuff. I mean, if you look at the Ante, it's like 7.8 kilometers now. And the ×2 multiplier is, I think, the same as before for the longer range stuff. So yeah, anyway, goes from 1.85 to 5.5, 1.95 to 5. 85 kilometers. And this is like the short range values, I guess. The way this is written is not terribly easy to it'd probably be easier to look at this in the armory and figure it out. Anyway, book M2 NASMs. You can read this for yourselves. It's just all the different AA units being affected by this. So S300 missile damage has been reduced. So I think this is no more one shots because everything's only 20 damage, not 25, 25, 21. I like having one shots in the game. It kind of deters suicide runs a lot, but yep, I guess we maybe get it back in the future, but it is what it is. Shulker, non-radar variant, AZP max dispersion reduced, so it makes those a little bit more effective. And the Unimog has had its damage and pen reduced. Dorad variant with the Mistral. Okay, well this was already kind of trash, so they just made it more trash. Helicopter units. Heli-based A-to-Gem aim time reduced. So they are firing a bit faster now. I think this affects the Lemur as well now, which is kind of scary. It's a change I didn't like before, that they made like Hellfires and Lemurs have a faster aim time as well. So like HGM helicopters at max range become quite obnoxious. I think they actually, in the first PT, made it so that it only affected like non-terminal guidance HGM, so hopefully they'll change that again in the future. Anyway, Catrans resupply time has been increased, so you can't just spam cruise missiles from Catrans anymore. Super Cobras and Vipers sidearm resupply has also been increased to 50 seconds, so that's like the seed. Obviously the KH31P I think is a seed on the Catran. Guardian has been removed from airborne to special forces, so the special forces get the Guardian back, which is nice, because having all three of the Apaches in the same spec was kind of weird. Little Bird and Killer Egg base HP has been reduced to 6, which means they get one shot, but the soft armor has been reverted to 10. Lemur acceleration and maximum speed increased, so yeah, Lemur is going to be really, really oppressive this patch. Max dispersion reduced for the following rocket pods. So rocket pods are basically going to be more accurate across the board, so watch out for that. The helicopters are going to be really nasty, so make sure you got plenty of SHORAD. But basically, the way that this patch is going to work is like SHORAD is for helicopters and long range AA is for aircraft. It's not like it was before, where like SHORAD was kind of both. Particularly like Tunguska's Pantsers were like kind of both. Now even those are more specialized towards helicopters than aircraft, even though they will still do a lot of damage to aircraft that fly over them. Air Forces, prices and cooldowns for all air-tab payloads have been adjusted. I probably won't go through all of them. Air-to-air missiles no longer lose accuracy due to pilot stress, which means that like things are going to hit a lot more often. A lot more often. Accuracy penalty at panic increase from 1.5 to 2. This is to do with like air to ground rather than air to air, right? Air tab flare count adjusted. So jets only have 25 flares into 30, but CAS gets more, so they get 50. I would prefer it if like normal jets just maintained 30, if I'm honest. Afterburner fuel consumption has been reduced, which will make units like the F-18D, which run out of fuel super quickly, be able to stay around a bit longer, which is great. Acceleration and maximum speed have been increased for the following air-to-air missiles, which is nice. It means we get some... So all of the 9K range air-to-air missiles are now faster, which is great. It makes them a lot more useful and much more worth buying because they're quite expensive. Aim time for all cruise missiles has been returned to 1 second, and aim time for smart bombs has been completely removed. As a balanced alternative, the aim time now begins to count not parallel to the climb, but after reaching high altitude. So just bear that in mind. Added a separate drop mode for smart bombs, which completely ignores the laser and is always used during bombing runs. So basically, if you don't want to use a laser, just use a bombing run. I don't think you can use the bombing run and then laze them. So yeah, you can't do that anymore, but you don't need to because Precision Strike drops instantly anyway without the aim time. Anyway, added a new option allowing units to be dropped one by one or all at once by emergency airdrop. This is already in the game. There are stuff here that I mentioned that will have already been added in the previous patch, so do bear that in mind. Availability limits for all 4-card aircraft have been reduced to 2 cards. I'm actually not sure if that's actually being implemented. If it is, I'm a bit worried about that, but regardless, we move on. Strategic bombers and transport aircraft now fly at 1,200 meters while at high altitude. You're going to see them coming out further away, but they're kind of safer for longer, but yeah. Anyway, improve strategic bombing behavior when using cruise missiles. This is to do with like when you're firing cruise missiles, the bomber won't just like continue flying straight. It will try and stay at maximum range. Which is a really nice quality of life for people who like using cruise missile strategic bombers. Cruise missile stats have been standardized across all variants, fixed incorrect KH-59 Mark II weapon ID naming. Base HP has been standardized to 10 for the following units. So Forepost, Orion, Corsair, Grey Eagle, Global Hawk, Predator, Reaper, Sentinel, and this I think already happened. Basically means that they get one shot now, which I think was already the case. So economy tweaks, we've got loads of infantry price changes. I'm not going to go through them all. If you want to pause and have a look, then feel free. Generally, it's just good balancing, I think, in my opinion. There isn't any that are like crazy bad as far as I'm aware. Just kind of having a look myself as we go through them. I don't think there's any I can remember off the top of my head that are crazy. I'm surprised the reserve Marines have gone up in price. That's actually kind of wild. And normal Marines have gone down in price. Okay, that's again a weird one. You've also got to bear in mind that there has been changes to like the stats in some cases. So like the mech rifles have got an extra man each, so they go up in price a little bit. Yeah, obviously all of this is still going to be changed in the future if anything's like changed too much. And the vehicle prices have been adjusted, so Sprut's a little bit more expensive. The Barbarous is even cheaper now with the Kinzhal. I liked it at 325. I think 300 is a bit much. Terminator's also reduced in base price, but the Era and AG-17 are increased in price. I think it's around the same price anyway. Thunderbolt's also gone up in price. I mean, this is good because it's just crazy good value against tanks. And CV90 has been reduced in price a little bit. Probably needs a bit of a nerf. Artillery prices have been adjusted for all of these. So, yep, again, price changes. You can feel free to pause and have a look at these, but I'm not going to go through all of them because there is so much to have a look at there. Helicopter base prices have been adjusted as well. This is, like, generally speaking, the base price of all helicopters has gone down. So particularly transport helicopters are very cheap now. And units like the Mi-24P Phantom, 65 points. Like, that's kind of crazy, right? But it's minimum 95 because you have to have like at least something selected. You would just put AA on this. Now we're going to go back to like the heli spam openers because of this. Mid game, it's not so bad, but it just kind of makes everybody play with helicopters at the start of the game. But yeah, units like the Osprey, for example, 150 down to 100, I think is actually a really nice welcome change. And like Chinook going down from 140 to 110, for example, it just makes them more usable. And same with like the plane prices. So all of the airdrop planes have gone down in price a little bit. It just means you get punished a bit less for using them because they're not meta at all. All right, general bug fixes. Fixed an issue where terminal guidance missiles could lose line of sight because of a target's high stealth value. Fix accumulated stress damage not decaying over time. I mean, this terminal guidance one is nice. Should make them lock back on target more often. Fix incorrect processing of multiple simultaneous damage sources. Fix a game freeze that could occur when bombing a target with infinite number of bombs. It fixed various combat system issues that could lead to a game freeze. So these are going to be, to do like, oh, you nuke something and your game crashed. Hopefully that's going to be less of that. Fix the default deck being selected instead of a player's own deck. Fix deck previews not matching actual unit modifications. Fix unit labels being highlighted through UI in some cases. Fix the chat window interfering with unit interactions. Fix the game freeze that can occur while exiting the game. And fix the camera attached to unit node not prioritizing unit pin output or input, sorry. Fixed all in-group refunded checkbox on the unit on unit refunder node. I think this is changes for the editor again. Same with this one. Fix mission storage synchronization and camera path origins. Yeah, it's all editor stuff. And there you have it. Yeah, loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of changes. I will leave a link to this document in the description if you want to have a read for yourself, assuming that I'm allowed to share it with you guys, which I think I should be. Overall thoughts on the patch is it's a pretty good patch. There is definitely things in this patch that I don't like, but I'm happy to compromise, and there's always a chance that things will get changed later on if things are too oppressive. For example, like HGMs on helicopters, if they're going in as is said on this patch notes, then yeah, they could be kind of rough to deal with. But yeah, things will get changed in the future probably again. Let's find out. There you have it. Let me know what you think. Is Broken Arrow back? Is Broken Arrow now 2.0? Crazy thoughts. We'll find out. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.